Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating story from the world of cinema. It's this battle between two giants, Hollywood and Bollywood. But when you look past all the headlines and actually dig into the data, oh, well, a really surprising story starts to emerge. Let's get right into it. Okay, so to really get this, we've got to set the stage first. And to understand the movie business, we first have to look at the massive economies powering these two countries, the United States and India. By pretty much any economic measure, the US economy is just substantially larger than India's. We're talking about a massive difference in scale here, which you would totally expect to see reflected across all their industries, especially entertainment.
So based on that huge economic picture, you just assume that Hollywood's box office would completely dwarf India's, right? I mean, with a gap just as wide as their economies. But is that what the data actually tells us?
This is where the whole story takes a really surprising turn. When we stop looking at the big picture economy and we zoom in on just the box office numbers, well, things get a whole lot more interesting. So let's start with North America. In 2025, the combined box office for the US and Canada was a massive $8.87 billion. I mean, that's a huge number, really cementing Hollywood's status as a financial powerhouse. Okay, now let's flip over to India. In that very same year, its box office hit a record-breaking $1.48 billion. That's an impressive figure for sure, the highest it's ever been for the industry there. So yeah, the US market is still over 5 times larger in terms of revenue. And that's a big difference, no doubt. But it's nowhere near the kind of gap we saw when we looked at their overall economies. And that raises the big question: what is closing that gap? And the answer? The real key to this entire puzzle, it lies in one very simple thing: the price of a single movie ticket. Seriously, this is the clue that changes everything. If you look at the data, you can see this really clear trend. In India, the average price for a ticket has been steadily climbing, and it reached a new high of 161 rupees in 2025. But let's put that 161 rupees in perspective for a second. In the US, you're paying around $15 to $16 for a movie ticket. That 161 rupees in India, it's about $1.90. The difference is just staggering. And this isn't some small variation you can chalk up to currency conversion. No, we are talking about a fundamental structural difference. It costs nearly 9 times more to go see a movie in the US than it does in India. So here's the really crucial point. India's $1.48 billion is built on the back of tickets that cost less than $2 each. North America's $8.87 billion, that's built on tickets that cost over $15. The value of one single admission is just worlds apart. And that insane price difference, that leads us to the most surprising, honestly, the most mind-blowing part of this whole story. If India is making that much money from tickets that are so cheap, what does that say about the number of people who are actually going to the movies? So let's just put revenue aside for a minute and ask a more direct question. Which country sells more tickets? Which population is actually the bigger movie-going audience? Okay, so in 2025, cinemas in the US and Canada sold approximately 780 million tickets. That is a colossal number of moviegoers. But in that same year, cinemas in India sold a staggering 832 million tickets. Let that sink in for a second. Despite earning billions less in revenue, India's film industry sold over 50 million more tickets than the US and Canada combined. By the simple metric of audience size, of butts in seats, India is the world's box office champion. And this table just perfectly summarizes the whole story. The US wins on value, completely driven by those high ticket prices. But India wins on volume, driven by this absolutely massive and passionate audience. It's two completely different models for two box office titans. So, knowing that India has the largest movie-going audience on the planet, that raises a huge question about the future of global cinema. And it's so important to remember that this massive audience isn't just one big group. The Indian market is incredibly diverse. I mean, this chart shows that Hindi films, what a lot of people think of as Bollywood, that's less than half the market. You've got these thriving film industries in languages like Telugu, Tamil, and Malayalam, all contributing to this incredible scale. And we're already seeing the power of this price lever in action. In 2025, India's total box office revenue hit a new record, even though slightly fewer tickets were sold that year. How's that possible? Well, it's because the average ticket price jumped by 20%. And that leaves us with this final, really tantalizing question. What happens as India's economy keeps growing and that average ticket price of just $1.90 starts to climb even higher? We're looking at the world's largest audience, and we may only be seeing the very, very beginning of its true financial power.